Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's just dive right in. When you hear the word gifted, what immediately pops into your head? For most of us, society has painted a very specific and, honestly, kind of cliche picture. We imagine the child prodigy effortlessly acing literally every math test, or the scientist with off-the-charts IQ scores who just inherently understands the secrets of the universe without breaking a sweat. But what if I told you that psychology paints a completely different picture? What if the true architecture of a highly intelligent mind doesn't look like perfection at all, but rather hides right out in the open, disguised as your daily struggles? Today, we're breaking down the brutal psychological truths about giftedness.
This really highlights the massive gap between expectation and reality. On one side, we have the movie genius, the unrealistic portrayal we've been fed by schools and pop culture, where being smart equals getting perfect grades and just having a seamlessly easy life. But the hard truth? Real giftedness is messy. It often shows up as deep contradictions, persistent daily struggles, and behavioral quirks that people, maybe even you, commonly mistake for deep character flaws. If you constantly feel restless, overly sensitive, or just out of place, well, you might not be broken. You might actually just be gifted and not even know it. So let's break down these hidden signs, starting with how your brain actually processes the world.
Section 1. A restless, curious mind. When your brain processes the world on fast forward. Let's look at how this high-speed processor creates a really unique set of behaviors. Honestly, this completely reframes things you've probably been criticized for your whole life. First up, fast boredom. You get bored much faster than most people. People might have called you lazy, but the truth is, your brain processes information so rapidly that repetition feels completely unbearable. Second, that inability to let go. When a problem catches your eye, you're turning it over in your head late at night, right? That obsessive focus isn't a weakness. Your brain literally just refuses to leave things half-solved. Third, you naturally spot invisible links and patterns. Two ideas that seem entirely unrelated to everyone else, they make perfect sense to you. This rare ability to connect the dots is actually a massive indicator of high-level intelligence. And finally, endless curiosity. You never stop asking why or what if. People probably tell you that you're just overthinking, but it's really just your brain's absolute hunger to explore far beyond the surface. So the crucial point here is summarized perfectly. A normal task might feel empty because your mind is constantly searching for the next challenge. You aren't easily distracted because you lack discipline. A task that easily satisfies someone else leaves you feeling completely hollow because your cognitive engine is constantly revving. You are literally starved for adequate mental stimulation. This cognitive restlessness, it's the engine of your intelligence. We've talked a bit about how this high-speed processor deals with external information, problem-solving, and patterns. But what happens when this intense focus turns inward? How exactly does a mind that picks up everything process the sensory and emotional world? Section 2. Emotional and sensory overload. Navigating a highly tuned radar. If those previous traits felt like your brain was on overdrive, well, these show how your nervous system is completely along for the ride. Gifted people rarely feel anything lightly. When you're happy, it's an overwhelming high, but when you're sad, it feels absolutely crushing. Then add in the physical world. Your brain picks up sensory input like a hyper-tuned radar. Bright lights, loud noises, the scratchiness of certain fabrics, or even tiny little details others completely ignore, they can deeply affect you. And because you process the emotional and physical world so differently, you often end up with this lingering sense of isolation. Even when you're surrounded by groups of people, you sometimes feel like you just don't fully belong. But that feeling of being an outsider isn't a flaw. It's a direct result of a brain that naturally operates on an entirely different frequency. I really want this quote to sink in for a second. Your emotional volume is always turned up. This hyper-tuned sensory and emotional radar can often feel like an incredibly heavy burden. It makes navigating loud environments, complex social dynamics, and your own internal world genuinely exhausting. But remember, this exact same intensity is what allows you to experience the beauty of the world much more vividly than most people ever will. It makes life harder, yes, for sure, but it also makes it profoundly more meaningful. Section 3. The burden of perfection. The dark side of unseen potential. Let's dive into this final cluster of traits. Here, we see the exhausting weight of having a mind that just sees so much. Because you can see the vastness of what's possible, you suffer from chronic self-doubt. You're constantly questioning your own intelligence. Why? Because you're chasing invisible standards of perfection. No matter how good your work is, your mind sees advanced possibilities that others simply cannot see, so you always feel like it could be better. You're constantly pushing forward toward a finish line that literally keeps moving. And when you decide to go after it, your approach is this intense, all-or-nothing hyperfocus. You dive in so deeply that time completely disappears. This extreme focus is incredibly draining, but honestly, it's exactly what allows gifted minds to achieve things that the rest of the world thinks are completely impossible.
The ultimate irony of the gifted mind is brilliantly captured right here. You focus so much on what you don't know that you completely forget how much you actually do know. This is the very core of your imposter syndrome. Others look at you and they clearly see brilliance. They see your accomplishments and your capabilities. But because your brain is so hyper-focused on the gaps, the missing pieces, and the endless horizon of what you haven't mastered yet, you only see your flaws. Your chronic self-doubt isn't proof that you aren't smart. It's actually a byproduct of just how vast your understanding really is. Section 4. Burden or tool. Reclaiming your extraordinary mind.
We've looked at these distinct, often frustrating signs, but together they form a really cohesive architecture. And here is the raw psychological truth of the matter. Being gifted rarely feels like a gift. Most of the time, it just feels like you're too restless, too sensitive, too obsessive, or just too different. It feels like a daily struggle to fit a fast-forward, hyper-tuned, perfectionistic brain into a world that operates on a much slower, more surface-level baseline. But those exact struggles, those deep contradictions that you've been carrying around, they are the ultimate proof that your mind works in truly extraordinary ways.
Which leaves us with this final, absolutely critical question. Are you going to keep treating your mind like a burden, or are you ready to use it like the tool it actually is? Once you recognize that your boredom is actually processing speed, that your isolation is actually a unique frequency, and your self-doubt is just a symptom of massive potential, you can stop fighting your own architecture. Take a moment to reflect right now. How many of these hidden signs sounded exactly like your daily life? It's time to stop apologizing for the way you process the world and start leveraging it. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.